Hey folks, today we're going to look at some original Transformers toy catalogs and point out the discrepancies between what you see on the page and what you saw in hand when you got the toy. Now, why would there be discrepancies? Well, sometimes these photo shoots used pre-production, prototypes or mock-ups. Sometimes they used the Diaclone toys. Sometimes it was the right toy, but the photographer just mistransformed it, and we love finding those little Easter eggs these days. And we'll start with the 1984 catalog. I always loved poring over these as a kid because no matter how many Transformers I had, there were always more to get. And I could use this to nag my parents to help me out with that. When you flip it over to the back, you see the box art of this famous mural. In future years, they had to dedicate more of the space to toys because it was a really sprawling line. I love how simple and clean this original catalog is. Everything I show you today is my own observations. There's a good chance I missed some. So if you caught something that I didn't see, let me know in the comments. Starting off with the top row, we can see all the mini cars there. Nothing looks out of the ordinary to me. But then when we switch over to the full-sized Autobot cars, there's one in particular that really jumps out, and that is the Diaclone Blue Streak. There was never a Blue Streak that was released as a Transformer, but that was one of the standard color combos in Diaclone, and this has become one of the most sought after grails of all Transformers collecting. Not only the Transformers fans, but the Diaclone fans. Everybody wants a blue streak, and there it is. And here we've got Optimus Prime, and there's no discrepancy here, but there is a rarity here. This is an early release that was in light blue. Normally, the roller and the repair drone were in this deeper blue, not quite purple, but you know the color. It's the one you most likely have. This light blue was released as a Transformer. I actually have one, but it was much less common. You can also see that this is the metal plate version of the trailer. You can see it in two places. On the trailer interior walls, there are little hooks that are holding on the metal plate that the Diaclone feet could magnetize to. And on the outside of the trailer, you can see those four openings where the hooks are molded into the side. And here we see the origin of the famous Rumble is red, Frenzy is blue discrepancy. Of course, in the cartoon, the blue cassette character was named Rumble. And here with the toys, it's reversed. Then moving on to the Decepticon jets, you can see they are labeled planes. These days, they're always called the Seekers, and that's been adopted by even Hasbro. Apparently, it started out as a fan thing. But back then, they were just the planes. And here we get our first look at Soundwave along with his pack in buddy Buzzsaw. I always found it strange when I was a kid that it was Buzzsaw rather than Laserbeak, just because Laserbeak was so much more prominent in the TV show. Then here's Megatron with all his accessories. Nothing out of the ordinary here. So we'll move on to 1985. And in this year, the line expanded considerably. There are a lot more toys and discrepancies to go through. There are some really iconic characters that were introduced, like Omega Supreme, Jetfire, the Dinobots. Let's start all the way on the left side of the page with Perceptor. And Perceptor is illustrated completely in red. I don't think there's ever been an official release that homaged this look. Normally, he's in a black and blue and red deco. He's also a working microscope, which makes him a really fun entry and sort of a complicated one. If you get your eye up to that lens and turn the knob, you can see that it zooms in and out. And there's a funny typo to go with it that says he magnifies up to 1 times. It should actually say 14 times, and that's something they corrected later. And next we see those beautiful Dinobots, and I don't see anything out of the ordinary here. But when we move on to the mini cars, there is definitely something that's jumping out at me, and that's Warpath. Take a look at his faceplate. It's painted fully in silver. As far as I know, he was never released this way, although there is a rare variant where his faceplate is painted black. But normally they were just that consistent maroon color as shown in the inset. Next up, we've got Omega Supreme, a really nice robot and base mode layout. There's also Blaster. Neither of those are jumping out at me with any kind of errors. But when we get to Optimus Prime, here they've actually changed that light blue roller to be the gray version of roller. And now we're talking 1985 when there were rub signs. You typically would not be getting the gray roller or the light blue roller at this point. It would be more that standard darker blue. You can also see this is still the metal plate trailer. And by 85, I don't think you would ever get the metal plate trailer. That was only an early release. By that time, those four holes in the side of the trailer wouldn't be there anymore. And it's just a metallic sticker that's decorating the inner wall of the trailer. And here's a look at the utterly gorgeous Jetfire. Of course, you already know how there was a discrepancy between Skyfire in the show and Jetfire as the toy. There are plenty of videos about that. Personally, I had a Macross Valkyrie VF1J when I was a kid. So not the VF-1S that Jetfire is based off of, but just one of the other ones in the line. But it didn't have all that Super Valkyrie armor. So when I saw Jetfire, that's the part that really blew my mind was all that beautiful armor. Moving on to the standard cast of Autobot cars, there are a couple of things that have changed. One, you see they're not showing the Diaclone blue streak anymore. Now they're on to the classic silver, which is what you would have gotten in the stores. And then if you take a look at Trax, notice that his face is blue. I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if that's a Diaclone thing or what. I don't think it is, but of course his face is supposed to be red. So let's flip this over and take a look at some Decepticons. But first, we got to look at what's not a mural anymore. Instead of a painted mural, it's more of a diorama that sets up this action scene with the real toys. If nobody has done that out there with your personal display, please do that and show it to me. I think that would be incredible. We ought to be able to recreate that scene. First up, we'll get a look at some Constructicons, and there's an interesting error here where Mixmaster's tumbler, the cement tumbler barrel, is gray. And that's really strange because on the same photo, there's another Mixmaster with the correct green. So here we get a look at Soundwave again, along with the deluxe Insecticons and Shockwave. And this one, I'm not sure if I'm right about this. It might just be a trick of the light in the background, but that gun sight looks pretty opaque and deep purple. The real one should be quite translucent, but again, it might just be my eyes not quite seeing what's really there. And next up, we've got the triple changers page, and in particular, take a look at Astro Train. His color scheme is completely different than what was released. Apparently, this is some early pre-production mock-up that does actually exist out there. Someone has it. It's obviously this dark gray, but if you look really close at the arms, you can see they're split. They extend, and the real toy did not have extensible arms. They're really short and stubby. The other thing that's kind of strange here is that he's holding Blitzwing's weapons. And here we've got the Decepticon Jets again with three new members. These are the cone heads, and the way they're transformed, their cone heads are pointing backwards like the original three instead of pointing up in the air. And I noticed the way they like to pose these toys in the pictures is to have the arm guns pointing one up and one down. In real life, I never actually saw a kid do that. We'd always point them downward along the forearm the way you saw it in the cartoon. Now, the last couple of Decepticon blocks, we've got the Insecticons and Nothing Out of the Ordinary, and then Megatron again, Nothing Out of the Ordinary. Although, again, they've omitted that silver gun that he came with. And moving on to 1986, we've got a lot of the movie characters. We open up on a lot more toys, some classics. So Jetfire, Omega. Now we've got blasters, Autobot cassettes. Also got a look at the new triple changers, Sandstorm and Broadside and Springer. Um, then we see Metroplex with a really nice scene. A lot of the mini cars are hiding among the city there, so I think that's a great view. And then when we get to the actual spread of the mini cars, there's a couple of things I'm noticing. One is that Warpath no longer has that incorrectly painted silver faceplate. Now he's back to the correct maroon. And then I think I see Hubcap with a yellow face when that should be an orange painted face. And here we've got to look at Superion, which might have been my favorite combiner of the time. But zoom in a little bit on Hot Rod, and you'll see he's colored in this really this pink color. It reminds me a lot of the recent retro G1 release that had that pinkish color, and it's closer to what you might remember from the movie. But the actual toy that was released was very much red. And here we've got the new leader, spoiler alert, Rodimus Prime in his metal-footed variant. And then we see Perceptor again in that red deco. They did not update the toy, but they did correct the typo, and now it says that he magnifies up to 14 times. And now we've got to look at another combiner, which is Defensor, and he, along with Raiden, were the only ones that had an attached combiner head that you couldn't lose. Then we've got the deluxe Autobots up top, Whirl and Roadbuster. These were Takatoku designs, and they came from the same origin as Jetfire. Actually, that's why they, if you work with them and you look at the details, including like the stickers, there are aspects that will remind you a lot of Jetfire. And here's a discrepancy that's right up there with Astro Train. This is Wreck-Gar's face. Take a look at the youthful version of Wreck-Gar, or maybe this is just what he looks like without a mustache. This must be some kind of a hand-sculpted prototype. Beyond the face, the actual dimensions of the head really look a little different to me, and that grill on his brow is very different as well. And now we'll flip it over to take a look at the 86 Decepticons. We start off pretty strong with Predaking looking ominous. We've got deluxe Insecticons, the triple changers again, and we still have that gray Astro Train. They didn't fix that. And more combiners. Here's Bruticus. Everything looks fine there. Devastator again has that gray mix master, so that was not fixed, but they also still show a separate mix master with the correct green barrel. Then Menasor is here, and we're showing the red-eyed variant of Menasor. He actually also came in a silver-eyed variant. Now we're in the home stretch, and here's Triptychon with some Stunticons decorating the battle scene. And when we move on to the cassettes, you can see that Frenzy, aka the blue one, has been released with gold accessories. So if you find gold cassette accessories, those go with the blue one. And last but not least, we've got the Decepticon planes, which now includes spaceships in the form of Scourge and Cyclonus. Take a look at Cyclonus's stickers. They're super hot pink. The real toy did have stickers in those locations, but his legs, for example, were purple with some white deco on them. And before we wrap up, I want to take a look at this collect them all checklist. This wasn't my personal catalog when I was a kid. This is somebody else's. So whoever owned this actually tried to use the checklist. And I just want to take a moment to see what he had. He's had Jetfire, he had Whirl and Roadbuster. He had Omega Supreme, about half the mini vehicles. We've got Perceptor on here, Blaster, and all the Dinobots. If I'm interpreting this right, this was one lucky kid. Good job. If you're out there, we salute you. And that's a look at the 1984, 85, and 86 catalogs and the discrepancies between what we saw on the page and what we saw on the toy shelves. If I missed anything, let me know in the comments. There's a really good chance I did miss something. And if you enjoy this sort of thing, I hope you'll take a look at some of the other videos on the channel. We talk about history and trivia like this and repair techniques. Say hi in the comments, of course. I hope you found this information useful, and we'll see you next time.